who wants to have their say. So I'd like to call on the following members of the public. There are three who are registered to speak. First of all, Sam Astle, Southwest Heritage Trust, and he's speaking in regards to the Chew Valley Hoard.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Good. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity to tell you something about the Chew Valley Hoard and our request for support from Taunton Town Council. The hoard itself was acquired last year. It comprises of over 2,500 coins dating from the period just after the Norman Conquest. We believe they were buried in the Chew Valley area for safekeeping during a period of turmoil in the West Country. The hoard was acquired by the Trust on behalf of Somerset Council with support from the National Lottery Heritage Fund, from the Art Fund, from the Friends of the Museum of Somerset and the Somerset Archaeological and Natural History Society. At £4.3 million, it's the highest value treasure acquisition on record. It's a record-breaking and nationally significant collection. The Minister for Culture, Chris Bryant, said this remarkable hoard gives us a unique insight into our country's rich history and one of the most important moments in our history when these islands were thrown into turmoil by the Norman Conquest. For the last year, we've been working under a development round application or bid or monies from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. And last week, we submitted our delivery round application to the NLHF Fund to bring the hoard back to Taunton, to make new displays possible at the Museum of Somerset and also hold a major temporary exhibition. We hope that exhibition will launch in 2027, which is the 1000th year anniversary of William I's birth. It will be a major moment for the town, for the Trust and the museum. And we also hope to bring other objects from collections, including the British Library and Exeter Cathedral Library. We've developed an ambitious programme of activities to engage a wide range of audiences with the hoard, working in partnership with many local charities and organisations, including Bridgewater and Taunton, Spark Somerset, the Brewhouse and Taunton Welcomes Refugees. We hope there will be family activities, talks and tours and a student project, and we will work to become a museum of sanctuary. The hoard will be put on permanent display in a new gallery, and we will also convert and create a new welcome space at the museum, including a redeveloped shop and improved visitor facilities. The total project for the delivery phase is just over £1.4 million, with a bid to the National Lottery Heritage Fund of just over £970,000. And we are now working with a range of partners to acquire the required match funding to take the project forward. The Trust itself is committing £100,000 from its own reserves, and we've already received confirmation of support from the Friends of the Museum of Somerset and the Friends of Somerset Archaeological and Natural History Society. A grant from Taunton Town Council would be a major symbol of support to the National Lottery Heritage Fund, and of course would enable us to take full advantage of this unique opportunity for the museum and for the wider town. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. We will be discussing this at item 11. When it comes to questions of money, we will have to suspend standing orders because this is confidential at the moment. But we will be hearing more from Sam later on in the meeting.
It's not confidential, is it?
Isn't it? Oh.
Need to suspend standing orders if you was to want to ask him any questions.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for the clarification. The discussion will be an open one unless there are any sensitive questions that need asking. Thank you, Sam. That brings me on to Roger House. You raised a matter about the neighbourhood plans.
Yes, yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Roger House from St Augustine Street. I consider a single neighbourhood plan for the whole of the council area, around 50,000 people, is unrealistic. Can the council reconsider this? That's 9% of Somerset population. The neighbourhood planning regulations 2012 have a section 2.5 neighbourhood areas where the startup scheme requires a map already done by the officers, but then B, a statement explaining why this area is considered appropriate to be designated as a neighbourhood area. This will be hard to draft. We risk residents' questionnaires that will seek views on vast areas of the town that the people don't know. 15 years ago at local planning seminars and consultations, 6,000 people was a magic number for a neighbourhood. In Parish Exeter, they've delivered just one neighbourhood plan called St James, north of the town centre, and that covers about 10% of the population. West Monkton in Chedden neighbourhood plan for 10k population extends to 186 pages. At Taunton, there are barriers like the main railway line crossing the town. Our friends in the north have, beyond the library, few public buildings, no large supermarkets and less good green space. When they participate, they will want to address these local shortfalls. In the east, there are already neighbourhood plans for Staple Grove and I believe Comtro, together with newly planned estates like Orchard Grove. A merger of existing planning documents is needed so local residents can update the existing work. In mature areas of the south, local centres planned 30 years ago, now in an era of climate change and less centre travel, are an area for improvement. Driven by local views, participants might want to influence spending locally by the councils. The town centre is massively different, where the Taunton Town Centre Action Plan 2008 will dominate planning decisions for around 500 radius circle around North Street. At the end of the last plan process, removing traffic in North Street was watered down. The council formed a new working group to look at tourism. Reducing traffic by day in North Street opens up safe walking routes between bus and coach stations, museums, historic buildings, a theatre, county cricket ground and hospitality businesses. This helps create a visitor centre to balance the loss of retail premises to online retail. This impacts most on the centre population and they need a matching neighbourhood plan for town centre conditions.
10 seconds, Greg.
There are many differences with the suburbs, Mr Mayor, but I believe we need to have 4 or 5 local plans and I hope the working group will look at that. I think the £25,000 will need to be increased and I hope with 5 plans you'll get more participation in the event. Okay.
Thank you, Mr House. Councillor Packer-Hughes.
Thank you very much. I spoke with Tom about this earlier as leader of the council, just to get his views on this as well. And thank you very much, Mr House, for coming along. And it's really good to see you engaged with this. You've raised some excellent points about the fact that there are lots of neighbourhoods within Taunton with quite interesting and different characteristics and needs. And I think highlights the need for a neighbourhood plan to address all those different needs. My understanding is that what you can have a larger neighbourhood plan that still takes account of the different needs of different areas, but I think this is going to be discussed later and I'm sure Marcus is going to have some more detail on that when we discuss this later in the agenda. Thank you very much for your submission.
Thank you very much, Councillor Packer-Hughes, and thank you once again. That was a very interesting contribution and it will be considered. Thank you, Mr House. Brings me on to Veronica Roach. You have a question about the encampments.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Not so much a question, more from the horse's mouth. May I share with you the effects of having our visitors in Victoria Park? I'm a disabled old age pensioner. I live on my own. It's quite threatening and intimidating when they're parked up right outside your back gate. I've sent in videos to the police and to yourselves. I mean, we had children playing football training on the other pitch furthest away from where they were parked the other day, and there were 2 fellas on quad bikes tearing right through where they were playing. Quite scary to watch this, and then intimidating them by doing wheelies all around and then going around on the outside edge of the park where neighbours were walking their dogs, and then they had a rave, or whatever the kids call it, till gone 2 in the morning. So I'm very much live and let live. I've got no problem with our visitors parking there. if they were respectful and left it nice and tidy, I wouldn't have a problem then. But as you know, the mess that they leave it in, and it's quite intimidating and not very comfortable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being succinct. Veronica, your comments are made note of. We will be discussing this on the agenda this evening, items 22 and 23, and thank you for raising it. That brings me on to.
Do you want to see if there's any other members?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any other members of the public who wish to ask a question? I haven't missed anybody behind the pillar. Okay, well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We always do welcome questions, and thank you for your contributions this evening. That brings me on to item 1 of the agenda. Apologies for absence. Apologies have been received from 2 councillors, Councillor Simon Lester and Councillor Tom Deane. Item 2 of the agenda, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations that councillors wish to make this evening, please? No recorded declarations of interest. Brings me on to item 3 of the agenda.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I do apologise. Councillor O'Donnell.
Say that when it comes to the Robarton allotments, I am a member of the Robarton allotments. I have a plot there.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Any other declarations of interest, or have I? Yes, Councillor Fernandez.
I guess when we come to the article about restrictions to the parks and ward member for Manor and Tangier under which Galmington sits.
Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. Take it that's all the declarations. Thank you. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting. The item is to approve and sign as a true and correct record the minutes of the previous council meeting, which was held on the 13th of May 2025. Do I have a proposal, please? Councillor Talley. Do I have a seconder?
I think you've got.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Ellis.
Sorry, I hope I'm at the right. There's a typo, I think, on the minutes of the last full council on page 6. It's got. Am I on the right? I haven't lost the plot of my brain. I had a bit of brain spasm and logged off. Yeah, I think it's page 6. So we've got reports from chairs of committees. You've got community in place, and then you've got Councillor Caroline Ellis, where it should be Councillor Ben Fernandez.
Make that then.
I do.
Should I read these things?
Yes, very good. I do apologise for overlooking you, Councillor Ellis. That is a very important point. Are there any other comments on the minutes, or can we proceed to the vote? Right. With the amendment that's just been raised by Councillor Ellis, do I have a proposer? Councillor Tully. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pollard, I think his hand went up next. All in favour, please. Those against? Are there any abstentions? I declare that proposition unanimously confirmed. Thank you. That brings me on to item 4, referral of minutes. Now this is to note the minutes and actions arising from the following committees: Operations and Assets, which took place on the 6th of March, Finance and Governance on the 4th of March, Personnel 9th of April, Community in Place 10th of April, Planning Development and Licensing 24th of April, and Community Place on the 15th of May. Please note that any committee minutes referred to full council requiring approval be listed separately. So can I first of all take a report from Operations and Assets Committee, please?
This is just to note the minutes.
It's just to note that we don't need to expand on that further.
You do need to.
I do need a proposer, though, yes, and I will take them on block. I have a proposer, Councillor Packer Hughes. I have a seconder, Councillor Stainthorpe. Can I have a show of hands, please? All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that meeting unanimously confirmed. Item 5, to receive any communications or announcements from town mayor. I believe in short reports, I will keep this as brief as possible. We have a very full agenda this evening, and I will not go into too much detail, but I'm more than happy if anybody outside this meeting wants to know more than happy to discuss. During the last meeting, which took place just after the mayor making, I went on various visits to community organisations, and it's one of those wonderful things when you may discover just how many things are going on in Taunton, even in this very short time. I've had visits to a concert and a play. I've been to other mayor making ceremonies because May is the season for that. I visited Norton Manor Camp, the Marine Space, with Adrian Prasanki, because he was his chaplain to the cadets, and I personally thank them for their contributions to their making and other events. And then the big one in the month was the twinning trip to Lisieux. This was a very moving occasion. A number of us went over. It was all self-funding, by the way. The visit was to war graves just outside Lisieux, where I had to make a speech. There were a couple of formal events which required other speeches, and most moving of all, that we had a visit to Normandy beaches, including, and I will say this, the British Memorial, which is fairly new. It's only 5 years ago, and for those of you who've been to Normandy in years gone by, I earnestly recommend you go and visit the Normandy Memorial. It's extremely moving, with names of every single person who died under the command of the British military. Very, very moving centre. And many other of the events, of course, were being entertained by hosts, and it was an exceptionally good visit. There was the Vintage Bus Day, which I know a number of you attended. Great fun in Taunton. It's an annual event. Great privilege to be there. And finally, I placed a wreath at the D-Day ceremony at the Normandy Memorial. Again, very moving, and we mustn't forget. So thank you very much. That's all I'm going to say under this report. I'm more than happy, as I say, to discuss anything with anybody outside this meeting. Number 6 on the agenda is to receive any communications or announcements from the leader of the council. The leader, Tom Deane, leave us well at the moment, and Councillor Amber Packer-Hughes, who's the deputy leader, may wish to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You'll be pleased to hear I checked in with Tom. We have no urgent notices to share, so in the interest of brevity, because there's a lot on the agenda, we will leave it at that. I think everything we would have mentioned is already covered by items coming up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That takes us on to item 7, reports from chairs of committee and working groups. The chair of each council committee or working group to provide an overview, maximum 3 minutes, of the business conducted since the previous council meeting. Now, what we are trying to do with the working groups is to report to the committees concerned, and that being included in the committee reports, because this meeting is such a full one. So I will go through the chairs of each committee in turn, and I leave it to them how much they want to say. So, Community in Place Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the benefit of the recording, this is my report as chair of the Community in Place Committee. The Community in Place meeting on the 27th of May, again, a very busy agenda. I think we sort of 2 hours, it was actually, no, it was 3. And we had a break, so it was very packed agenda. Committee approved 2 ward member initiative schemes, one for storage facilities at Coach and one for a compost toilet, which had words of support from the public speaking time from members of Whitmore allotments. So I think they're very grateful that we've approved their grant, and both of those schemes were approved. Of those items, further items, we had questions and updates from Avon Sunset Police and a progress report for Taunton Together 25, which is coming up in September. We also discussed and supported the recommendation for the appointment of a youth provision specialist, and I know that our youth working group are busy fleshing out the final details on that one. 2 reports from our climate officer also discussed, and recommendations for amendments to the Town Council climate plan were approved, together with support for 3 projects under the Watermont Town Status Project. And we also reviewed and approved the budget for upcoming civic events and activities. So that's just a brief whiz through of what we covered on the 27th of May. And again, happy to take questions outside of the meeting if needed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. Finance and Governance Committee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nice to see you this evening. Thank you. We've got a new Finance and Governance Committee this year, the chair and the vice chair. Now, the chair is Frederica, Councillor Smith-Roberts, who was away that day, so I took on chair and vice chair of the committee this year. We covered all of the reports we'll be covering later. So that included the internal audit report, the annual governance statement, the county statements, the general reserves policy, where there was a breach that there's nothing to worry about, as much as I will say, and then the earmark reserves. So we went through all of those and all agreed through full committee. So I don't want to take any more of the time because Gail was going to cover them all off and give you the details later. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. That brings me on to Operations and Assets Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a very long meeting last Thursday. Again, we had to enforce a break just for our sanity. And most of the items that we discussed are coming up tonight, so I won't get into too much detail. But 2 things that I think stand out from last week's meeting. The first one was a request from Maidenbrook Parks and the open spaces there. The open space there, they were requesting funding to have it cut back and really tidied up. It's been left in a state of disrepair for many, many years, and I'm very pleased to say that we are able to support their request, and we have passed a resolution to tidy up that area. And the other fantastic idea we had was from Councillor Solly with his paddle tennis, and he presented a report to us and an idea of establishing this new sporting resource. We were very excited by it. We're very keen to progress it. The question is where to put it. There is available tennis courts in Taunton, but we won't have to go through public consultation to use those. But I think we're keen to progress and keen to see this sport brought to the town. So I want to thank Councillor Solly for alerting us to that. Other than that, we had an update on the bins. Hopefully residents around town will know that will notice that new bins with our town logo are going on them, and we've already had positive comments back from Staple Grove residents where they've been implemented first. So look out for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Don. Brings me on to, excuse me, Planning, Development and Licensing Committee. Councillor Slide.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was a really good evening. Actually, it was pretty jam-packed. Lots of applications, lots of licensing applications as well. Yeah, it was just a very efficient evening. And just like others have said, it was quite a jam-packed evening this evening, so I'll keep it short. But yeah, it was very efficient.
Thank you very much. That brings me on to Personnel Committee. Councillor Smith-Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. I chaired this in the absence of Councillor Packer Hughes. Last week we had again a busy agenda where we talked about a whole range of issues to ensure that we have the right policies for our staff, so ranging from adverse weather to a toil policy to disciplinary grievance and appeals policies, all the way through to our pensions and safeguarding, and then also bringing in a additional leave policy. So it was an action-packed agenda, making those decisions last week. Just something to add, I know you're not taking the working groups, Chair, but if you'll just give me 2 seconds, is that we're opening a toilet on Friday, so I can't let it pass that we are.
Happy to make an exception.
So on Friday, I want to say around midday-ish, maybe 11:30, we're opening the changing places toilets in building 2 at the bus station. So again, that's a really positive opportunity that we've taken hold of from Somerset Council, and that will allow more people to be able to use our town centre.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith-Roberts. We always love talking about toilets. That brings me to the end of the committee reports. Item 8, reports from outside bodies appointees. Are there any updates from outside body appointees? Councillor Smith-Roberts?
I was just going to add that I attended NOC Super Council's meeting this week. I want to say yesterday, actually. And just to say that we continue to play a part in that. That is the meeting of like larger councils within the country, and we get shared learnings from there. So we had an update on energy plans from the government's energy body yesterday, and we had an update from Penzance as to how their council works. It's a really interesting way to learn about how other councils work, and I'm sure we can share stuff moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Smith-Roberts. I actually met the Mayor of Penzance when I was down there a few weeks ago, so I'll be interested to hear what transpired. Are there any other reports from outside bodies? Thank you very much, folks. That brings me on to item 9, to receive any reports or communications from Somerset councillors. Are there any Somerset councillors who'd like to make a presentation? 5 minutes maximum, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, colleagues, members of public, and excellent Taunton Town Council team. Yesterday, I, along with my colleague, Councillor Dawn Johnson, received a text message from a concerned resident at 1655 about travellers moving on to Pennyfield Park in Coventry. I contacted Marcus Prowse, your excellent deputy clerk, at the same time, and by 1802, the bailiffs were instructed and the public and police were on site. Today at 14:35, all the travellers were escorted out of the park and the park was cleaned up. All this in less than 24 hours. I, along with my colleague Dawn Johnson and our residents in Coventry, would like to thank you and your team at Taunton Town Council. Very well done to you all. It's not that often that you see. I look at it as our councillors that come out and sort of thank the council for the fantastic work, and I genuinely mean it from our residents and ourselves. I've got a statement to say that's with potentially the conclusion to end up. This problem is actually not unique to Taunton. Like many areas across UK that continue to experience unauthorised encampment by traveller communities on the council land, including public parks and open spaces. These situations often trigger community concerns. We've heard from a member of public earlier. Enforcement costs running into thousands of pounds and operational pressure on police and council services. However, enforcement alone does not offer a sustainable solution in my view. The root cause lies in the persistent shortage of unauthorised, authorised, well-located traveller sites, particularly transit pitches, which leaves many families with no lawful place to stop. To break the cycle of unauthorised encampments and escalating tension, Taunton and the wider Somerset must lead with evidence-based planning, practical site provision, and a fair enforcement. A number of well-placed, well-managed transit sites could deliver significant savings, financial, operationally, and socially. Let's shift from the reactive enforcement to a planned provision that benefits everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. That was a really helpful that you just made. and we will be discussing this further later in the meeting. But thank you for that. Are there any other Somerset councillors? Councillor O'Donnell, wearing your Somerset hat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to raise just a concern and issue going on up in Barton and Staple Grove. People are probably aware that there's a large amount of roadworks going on between here and Kingston St Mary. Kingston Road has been closed. Just like to inform people that Hope Corner Lane is now back open for people in the area. But I just want to highlight, because I noticed the police are here tonight, so I just wanted to highlight the fact that actually we were called by Wales and West people to complain about very abusive behaviour and language that they were receiving from drivers and members of the public who are trying to get through and are moving the barriers and causing disruption and causing delay. And we must remind people that they're opening up the road and exposing large gas mains, so it is dangerous. I advised them to pass on any concerns to the police, and I spoke to Andy Gloyn, and I want to thank you. I want to take the opportunity to thank the police for responding to my request, and also just to really please just to ask you if they do report abuse and pass on a number plate that you would follow it up. So I know a member of your team are going up to visit them tomorrow morning, so I want to thank you. Thank you very much for that. They are doing very essential works, and they shouldn't have to really be suffering that kind of abuse from members of the public. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Sorry, Councillor Smith-Roberts was next.
Thank you, Chair. So just wearing my unitary hat, I just wanted to advise of a few things that were going on at the Unitary Council. Firstly, I can't remember if I mentioned this last month because it's all moving so quickly, is just about the fact that Fix My Street is no longer being used by Somerset Council. So we do need people to report when they come across potholes and littering and bins that need emptying, but that they use the Somerset Council website to report that rather than the Fix My Street functionality. I mean, it will be dealt with as promptly as it can be. And it does mean that actually we can keep track of that, and it does have a financial saving to the Unitary Council. Please do report potholes. I know people love to complain about them on social media, but they have come out this week to already and fixed a couple of mine that I've reported directly. Other things that have been worked on at Somerset Council is in relation to the closure of Yeovil maternity services. So whilst that is in obviously a town a little way away, that will have an impact on Taunton residents. So it would be good if we as a council just keep an eye out and see what that impact will be. We know that Musgrove needs a new maternity unit, that I think it's probably the 1940s build. So, you know, Taunton residents will be impacted on that, where people are having to come across to be able to also use those services. And I know that us as councillors at the Unitary Council are named to raise concerns around that. And then finally, we're just promoting again within our library service. I love to say our libraries are more than just books. There are many activities that go on there. If you visit both Taunton and Priorswood Library, you should be able to hire a blood pressure monitor. And so it's important that people know that they can go there to look after their health as much as go and read the latest novel that's come out.
Thank you, Councillor Smith-Roberts. And on that point, I was at the library only yesterday for an event, and every single one of the blood monitors was actually out. They are being well used, and the library are delighted with the response. So thank you all the hard work that's been going into that by Somerset Council. Did I see your hand up, Dawn?
Hi, I'm Dawn Johnson, Somerset Councillor, along with Habib for Comitro and Trull. Just to add to what Habib said, I wanted to make a thank you publicly to the police for their attendance while the travellers were sighted at Pennyfields, because it really did offer a great deal of reassurance to all the residents and school children that there was a really strong presence of the police throughout the incursion. So thank you for the work you've done there. And just to add a couple of things going on locally in Comitro and Galmington, we still have really difficult problems with parking. Hospital parking, it's not going away, it's getting worse at times. We will be pushing hard for this Taunton-wide parking strategy, which never seems to materialise. We really need it. It's really causing an awful lot of distress for our residents. And you know, if we can work with Taunton Town Council in any way, shape or form on that, it would be very much appreciated. The other things are, I'm sure none of you use them, but just in case you do, to confirm that the services slipways will be closed this weekend. For any of you who do like to slip onto the M5 at the Road Chef Services, just the other side of Trull, you will no longer be able to from this weekend. The barriers are being reinstated, and just to flag up so that you don't take a wasted journey thinking you're going to get on the motorway there, because you will no longer.
Thank you very much for that. And just as an observation, I'd just like to say from my perspective as mayor, and I represent the whole town, not any particular political faction, how proud I am that the police, Somerset Council and Taunton Council are all working so well together to improve a lot of people in Taunton. And I think it's something for us all to be proud of. And I thank you all for that cooperation. That brings me on to item number 10, the forward plan. Members to note the forward plan for full council. Do I have a proposal? I'm sorry, Councillor Ellis has something to say.
Yeah, I just wondered when will it be, the July full council or September full council? This is directed to Marcus probably, about Goodland Garden Footbridge and the next stages. When are we scheduling that in for? Will it come straight back to full council presumably?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe there's still some work to do in unpicking and putting together a tender application, which was the instruction from council last time. So as that proceeds, and then once that's done, we'll bring that back to full council for a decision. It has taken us a bit longer in terms of pulling apart what people can offer in terms of the design and the build aspect. But the officers are progressing on with the newly equipped project team that we have in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. It is of concern to many people just to know what's happening. So thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Councillor Ellis, for raising it. Is there any other observation before I may move to a vote? Councillor?
Thank you. Just curious, what's the TTC's ward boundaries consultation in July on that? I don't know if I've missed something or.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You may have seen that the Boundary Commission are consulting on boundaries for the new unitary councils based on 2027. As part of that, there is an effect on the ward boundaries in Taunton. It's very slight, and it doesn't affect the actual exterior boundaries, because that will require the community governance, which will be aware. But it's just a chance for you as a council to make a collective response if you wish to. I believe the consultation closes on the 11th of August. So there has been some stuff on social media about it, and I believe on our notice board as well. So it's bringing that to councillors to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Councillor Festini, does that answer your question?
Yeah, so it's Somerset Council's boundary ward reviews, not TTC's.
There was a recommendations that will affect the parish boundaries in Taunton. So I believe changing of the lines slightly, so the overbridge ward is affected, I believe, and some of the others. But we can bring forward some more information on that and circulate that to councillors in advance of the July meeting.
Thank you, Marcus. So, Councillor O'Donnell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in relation to that, you can go on to the CBE website and look at Somerset, and there's an interactive map, and it will show you what the proposed unitary. I was looking at it last night, and I was seeing what the proposed new ward boundaries would be for this town. There are some changes. I mean, definitely, it's still the same number of wards, but there have been some changes. But you can have a look on the BC website and look at Somerset, and you can see it. You can look at it there.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Are there any observations before we proceed to a vote? Thank you for your contributions. It is important. Could I have a second proposer first of all, please? Yes, Councillor Pollard. Do I have a second? Councillor O'Donnell. All those in favour? All those against? Are there any abstentions? I declare that vote is carried unanimously. Thank you very much for that. And that brings me on to item number 11. This is the Chew Valley Board agenda request, community and place recommendation. I'd now like to call on Councillor Craig Stone if he's here.
Councillor Ellis.
It's Councillor Ellis who's going to present this. You're going to introduce the item. If members wish to ask Sam Askell from South West Heritage any questions, members may need to suspend standing orders, but I'll leave it to Caroline Ellis first to introduce this item.
Thank you. So you heard from Sam at the beginning, who was introducing the Chew Valley Hall project as an incredibly important project for this town and our residents, nationally and even internationally. And it's, as you will know, we already give a venue grant. In the last 2 years, we've given a venue grant to the museum, but that is simply to enable it to maintain existing opening hours and carry on sort of business as usual. But the Chew Valley Hall presents an opportunity. This is far from business as usual because of its huge significance. It's not something you can just shove in a display cabinet and go, there's the Chew Valley Hall. If any of you remember, do any of you remember the Alfred Jewel when it came to Taunton Museum? And there were queues. I remember queuing with my children who were then young all around the block. It was mega. This is going to be like that and then times 1,000. So this is a big thing, and it requires the museum to create a special exhibition around it to maximise the potential. It also will require rejigging of the museum to provide it with a suitable permanent home. And as part of that, the museum also have been consulting with disabled people and various members of the community to ensure that a new visitor area, if you're thinking about the massive increase in visitor numbers to come and see this incredible thing, you know, the existing museum is going to struggle with that. So they're going to redo the whole of the inside visitor area, and they've consulted with disabled people. So as part of that, it will be becoming much more accessible. So this request is for a one-off major project, and it's asking us, Taunton Town Council, on behalf of our residents and businesses, for match funding. We have in a cultural development reserve, so this is for cultural development, this money already been agreed, it's held over from last year, 49,000. I think it's actually, there's an extra 950 quid in there actually. So that at Community in Place, it was proposed that we use that to contribute towards this major project for the Museum of Somerset. Now, the benefits of this project to Taunton are huge. Already, the Museum of Somerset is our top tourist attraction. It contributes 2.3 million to Taunton's economy every year. It's a place where children can learn about their history, everyone can learn about their history through the museum and the fantastic volunteer-led town tours that we do. It's got a huge reputation nationally and increasingly internationally as well. It's one of the jewels in our crown. So this is a very important project. It's not just about the hall, it's about all the engagement work that's going on around it, the new opportunities for students and young people, for disadvantaged communities to get involved in all the engagement project around it. And we will see a huge uptick in visitor numbers because of the hall, if they can do what they need to do to make it a really good temporary exhibition and then really kit the museum out to receive the extra numbers. It will do a huge amount for the town in terms of increased visitor numbers, which as we know, means increased patronage of our bars, restaurants, hotels, retail outlets. This is a big thing. So what the museum are requesting is this one-off match funding, and this really matters in terms of maximising the amount of money that the National Heritage Lottery Fund is prepared to put in. So this could really help get the museum over the line. And there are a number of other funders that they're being asked to contribute and have agreed to contribute. The museum has got a very, very good track record of delivering on big projects like this. So It's basically a question of us agreeing tonight, hopefully off the back of the unanimous Community and Place Committee recommendation that yes, we want to make this investment in Taunton, in our museum, for the benefit of our residents, who get this, much improved, vital cultural resource on their doorstep, and we want to benefit from all that increased tourism revenue. So we're making this. We want to make an investment, because if we invest 49,000, that will lever in all those hundreds of thousands to take this project over the line. It's really, really important that there is that local support. This is a one-off thing, and the return on this investment would be huge.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Fraschini, I believe you wanted to say something.
No, Smith Roberts.
Right. Oh, Councillor Smith Roberts, I'm sorry.
Oh, how to follow Caroline with that wonderful selling of why this is important to do for our town. I was very fortunate enough to go to the acquisition of this at the British Museum and see some of these coins, and it truly is an acquisition that means so much to us as a country. So when you think about the fact that if we put in the money that's being requested to us tonight, that's part of 1.4 million, say, in the papers, that is then going to be spent in Somerset Museum to then make that museum even greater than it is today. For me, there are so many positives for doing this, not just around having something that's from the wider Somerset area in our county town, but also about bringing people to our wonderful museum and then them using the facilities around the area. We're doing lots within Castle Green, lots within the town to make it even better than it is today. And for me, this is a really positive step of us showing support for our heritage and valuing economic development and tourism.
Thank you, Councillor Smith Roberts. Are there any other comments that members would like to make? Councillor O'Donnell, and then excuse me. Sorry about this. I apologise. Yes, first of all, Councillor O'Donnell, and then I'll take other comments.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to wholeheartedly support this. I think Somerset Museum has some great exhibits. We have the finest mosaic and earliest piece of woven mosaic history here in our museum. In the whole of the UK, it's here in this museum. This would be another great find for us. It would be a huge draw. It would make Somerset Museum one of the best places, the best attractions down here, and I think we should be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor Garside.
I just want to say that yeah, I totally agree with everyone else, what everyone else has said. And also that it enhances Taunton's heritage, because it's another aspect of all the exciting things that have happened in the past in Taunton. So to add the Norman conquest to the Civil War, to all the other the Monmouth Rebellion and all the other events that have happened in Taunton that make Taunton such an interesting place to live in, I find that very, very exciting, very positive, and I think many people will come and we will reap the benefits. I'm very much in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Garside. Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also, as Chair of Community in Place, we had a really good meeting and chat, and we went through all of the finer detail. I fully support this. I think as I say, it's of national importance. It would really put Taunton on the map, and I fully commend this to my fellow members. Thank you.
Any other councillors wish to speak? In that case, we'll proceed to a vote. Members to consider the recommendation of Community in Place Committee following an agenda request by Councillor Caroline Ellis to utilise 45,000 from the EMR 325 Cultural Development in support of the Chew Valley Board. Can I have a proposal, please? Thank you, Councillor Pollard. I think your name went up first. I have a seconder, Councillor Ellis. Oh, put your hands up. All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? I declare that unanimously confirmed. Thank you very much. Brings me on to item number 12, internal audit. I now call on Gail Chadwick, and she is going to introduce this particular item. Thank you.
Mayor, you'll find attached the detailed internal audit report, which shows 8 matters have been raised during the year. 7 were from the first interim visit, of which on which remedial actions all taken place, and 1 minor item from the final visit relating to collection of gate access fees at Victoria Park, where there are outstanding debts. This item was a known matter before, and actually item 21 on tonight's agenda discusses the gate access fees. Overall, the internal auditor has signed off the annual internal audit report, confirming that all the internal control objectives have been met, and this accompanies the council's submission of the annual governance and accountability review to the external auditor. Finance and Governance Committee scrutinised both the reports and confirms that they're happy for council to note them, and also to confirm that they're satisfied that they've received adequate assurance that the council's system of internal controls and governance are effective.
Thank you, Gail. We can now move to, do I have any other comments? We have to vote on this, don't we?
Yeah.
Yes, so could I have a proposal, please? Yes, Councillor Isaacs, I couldn't see from there. Councillor Furman seconded. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? Declare that vote unanimously confirmed. Thank you very much indeed. We now move on to item 13, the annual governance report. I now call again on Gail Chadwick, our responsible finance officer and finance manager, to introduce this item. Thank you.
The annual governance statement is part 1 of the overall annual governance and accountability review. This is where council confirm that they're happy with the governance, internal control. Attached is supporting evidence that means that the council can say yes to all of the assertions, which are scrutinised by the Finance and Governance Committee, and they confirm that that's what they wish to recommend, that we tick yes to all of those assertions and that council approve the annual governance statement.
Very much. Are there any comments before I move to a vote? Thank you. All those in favour? First of all, to have a proposal, please. I'm sorry. Councillor Isaacs, second, please. Councillor Ellis. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that unanimously confirmed. Thank you very much indeed. That's item 14.
That's 13.
Sorry, that's item 13. We now move on to item 14, accounting statements for 2024-25. I now call again on Councillor Gail Chadwick, responsible finance officer and finance manager, to introduce the next item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Attaching the accounting statements, and together with those statements is data to support the input into each of the boxes. This again was reviewed and scrutinised by the Finance and Governance Committee. They're happy to recommend approval of the accounting statements, which is the second part of the accounting, the annual governance and accountability return that goes to our external auditor.
Thank you very much indeed. Do I have a proposal? Oh, are there any comments before we move to a vote? I have a proposal, please. Councillor Pollard, well, second, please. Councillor Stainthorpe. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? That unanimously confirmed. This is the Gail Chadwick show. So on to item 15, the General Reserve Policy Breach. Over to you again, Gail.
Thank you. At the year end, sorry, go one step back. The General Reserves policy states that we will hold 3 months general expenditure as a general reserve. At the year end, we held £807,000 as a general reserve, but that was short of the £1 million that we require for 3 months expenditure as we currently stand. That was primarily due to paying £188,000 for the tree planting for the Urban Tree Challenge, of which that money will be reclaimed during the current financial year from the grant that's due to us. So council is asked to temporarily carry the breach of the general reserve and pending receipt of that grant money.
Thank you very much. Do I have any comments before I proceed to a vote? In that case, do I have a proposal, please? Councillor Stainthorpe. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Isaacs. All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? I declare that unanimously confirmed. Which brings me on to item 16, BMR Reserves.
And finally, at the March meeting, an indication of the year-end earmark reserves was presented to council, and with the understanding that we would further provide a report once we knew what the final position was at the year end. That's the attached report that shows what the earmark reserves at the year end were made up of and how they were transferred. And it's requested that council considers delegating authority to the RFO to transfer funds from the EMRs where they were used for projects and primarily the ward members initiative scheme that was left over. The remainder of the reserves, of course, come back to council for formal agreement. Also attached to this report is a report to increase the capacity in the office by buying additional office furniture and asking for utilisation of £5,000 of the earmark reserve that's set aside that's remaining on the office project.
Thank you very much. Do I have any observations before we proceed to a vote? Do I have a proposer, please? Councillor Pollard. Do I have a seconder, please? Oh, Councillor Isaacs. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that unanimously confirmed. Thank you, Gail. Now move on to item 17, section 106 Playparks application 38/18-0465 Operations and Assets Committee recommendation. I now call on either Councillor Nick O'Donnell or Will Rose Grants Officer to introduce this item. Councillor O'Donnell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we discussed this assets last Thursday, and we came to a resolution that you see before you, and or recommendation that you see before you, and it's come to us today because we need to seek full council approval to apply for the section 106 money. Just a bit of background to it. Priorswood Park has a piece of play equipment that is now defunct. It needs to be replaced. We can replace it. We have access to £19,000 S106 money, which we are wanting to apply and use that to spend on Priorswood Park. There was a list of 4 parks we could have used. Priorswood Park is the nearest one to where the S106 money originates from. We have gone to the consultation with the local residents, and you'll see in the appendix a number of play park equipment was offered to them. The consultation doesn't end until next week. At the moment, we can say that one of the climbing frames, I forget which one it is now, is quite far in the lead. However, at Operations Asset last week, we looked at it in light of the parks review that we had undertaken some months ago, and we noticed that the second most favourite or second piece of equipment that's been selected is a fully accessible wheelchair roundabout. That is the second favourite one. We are conscious that part of our parks review is that we are to improve the scores, and Priorswood's provision of DDA equipment is quite low, so we were hoping to have the opportunity to replace the equipment with this large wheelchair roundabout. However, we are conscious that we really do need to go with what the residents are voting for. So we decided that we would try and go for both option 1 and option 2. And I have to say at this point, Will, I seem to recall last week that we changed the recommendation to members are requested to give delegated powers to the town clerk in conjunction with the chair of operations and assets to ensure that actually we can try and fund both pieces of equipment. Will has found, has got a quote for them, and I believe it all comes to about £39,000. We have potentially 19,000 from S106 money if you apply for it. We have another 5,400 from one of our pots, which we can use. That leaves us with a shortfall of about 15,000, which you'll notice in the report. We are going to consider using up to £15,000 of community infrastructure levy money. So that's what we would like to do, and I'm hoping you will vote for this. The intention is to try and get some as we can get to this S106 money. The intention is to put both pieces of equipment, the one that the residents have voted for, but also this large wheelchair usable roundabout, which is their second choice. This is their second choice. But are we able to change the recommendation to delegated powers to the town clerk in conjunction, which is what we did have at the end of ops and assets? We can do that now. And can we add that now and vote on it?
Yeah, to say something.
Yes, thank you, Gail.
Unfortunately, when we get to 25,000, we have to put out any work to full tender. If we go for a full tender for those two pieces of equipment, based on the fact that the section 106 money needs to have been spent, installed and paid for, I think that we're risking losing that money, as we've only got until the beginning of November. So to do a full tender, we would probably need 6 weeks, and then to get the equipment in, and then, so I think to do both at the moment, probably potentially not the right way to go, because we could lose the section 106 money.
Right to that comment, sorry. That's that comment from Gail. Councillor O'Donnell, would you like to come back on that before we proceed to a vote?
Well, it's kind of, I mean, our recommendation in assets last Thursday was that we were going to pursue both pieces of equipment in conjunction. So kind of rather, well, I think I'm going to refer to Amber and then Will. I think we'll let them come in before I lead us down any particular decision.
Councillor Packer-Hughes.
I just wanted to say, in my experience with consulting on park equipment in my previous history with the Friends of Belvedere Park, it's worth taking with caution in terms of what is the most popular, because most people are able-bodied. There is a much smaller proportion of our community who have accessibility needs, and they will make up a much smaller voting proportion. So you need to give a slightly different weighting when looking at those things. If we have an objective to improve our accessible equipment, that needs to have more significant weighting, in my opinion, rather than purely the one that is the most popular, because you're not taking a fair vote amongst the demographic you're trying to serve. So if we were have to choose between the two, my preference at this stage would be to choose the accessible equipment, and then have a plan to look at being able to source funding for the climbing frame at a later date. Would be my recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Packer-Hughes. Is there anybody else who wants to say?
I think Will was.
Yes, well.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to start just by putting on record that it's not to replace equipment, it's to add equipment into the play area. So there was a piece of play equipment that was no longer fit for purpose. We are taking that removal in-house, so that the application for the section 106 funding is specifically for the addition and improvement of that park. With regards to the tender, yeah, I would say a 6-week process would probably put us severely at risk of not being able to achieve that section 106 deadline. given that all needs to be done and paid against invoices by the 13th of November. Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
Giuseppe,
Giuseppe,
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Amber has basically said everything I was going to say in that, and I fully support Amber on that one. If our parks policy especially states we need to improve our access to play equipment, I think that is the priority over the other one. That's just my own personal view. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. Another hand.
Federico.
Yes, Councillor Smith-Roberts.
I was just going to say what Giuseppe and Amber had said, so I'm wondering if can someone just clarify where we are therefore with the recommendation. For me, it is around spending the section 106 money on accessible equipment and to get that done in time that we don't lose the money.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith-Roberts. Councillor O'Donnell.
Yes, so at the moment, the section 106 money, I believe, is to replace equipment. So it was, and our policy is to improve the scores from our review, which part of which includes accessible play equipment, but it's also, you know, there's a wide range of scores across accessibility, inclusivity, as well as play value. I believe I might have to refer to Will again, that there was this. Well, the S16 was quite specific as to what it could be used for.
Yeah, I will take that on. Yeah, so the section 106 funding, we went in specific instructions that it has to be used to increase play provision within the park. That was Somerset Council's key recommendations were as to what it can be used on. The section 106 agreement for the specific development is quite generic, and that it says it just needs to be used to improve play provision within the vicinity of the development. That's the only guidance that the specific development is.
Councillor Fraschini.
So I would suggest that's what we're doing because we're opening it up to more people. Because at the moment, I don't believe that park has any accessible equipment. So if that's our policy and the first thing we do is not put in accessible equipment, it's kind of pointless having a policy that way.
Thank you. This is a nutty one because we could end up with nothing from what I'm hearing. But I pass you back to Councillor O'Donnell.
In that case, I think what we need to do is remove the line considering use of 15,000 community infrastructure levy, because that's clearly making it being a sticking block. I think we should go and get this £10,000 and use the 5,000. And I think we should go back to changing it to the dedicated power to the town clerk in conjunction with the chair of operations and assets and the Playpark working group. Maybe results to the public consultation so that actually we can have some sort of political guidance on what we do end up spending the £19,000 on.
Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, the paper I'm looking at doesn't refer to this extra still malarkey.
It's the addendum.
Is there an addendum? I don't know, I can't see the addendum. Yeah, I think we just get this over the line in terms of we need to apply for that, not we need to get our mitts on the 19 grand for the benefit of the Priorswood and the users and whatever. And of course, we don't know what the result is. It's Monday the 16th of June, it closes the consultation. So it's like we can't really preempt what. No. So that's one factor. We asked people, went out to public consultation to say, what would you like? Then somebody's going to have to make a judgment call, which will be the clerk in consultation with whoever, you, Nick, as to which you go for. And you've heard views tonight about the sort of weighting that people want to see. If, I would say this, if it turns out that the public go for something that's not accessible and we can only afford to buy two, because I think originally we were told we could probably get two for the price of one, didn't we? That's what we were working on the basis of.
We were hoping
for that, so that's kind of annoying. But anyway, so if you go for the accessible one, what we then need to be able to say to residents is we'll be on the lookout, since we know that you want this, if it's the non-accessible bit of equipment, that there's probably another way of pursuing that Because there will be, won't there? I mean, it'll be, whether it's still, or whether it's some combination of ward member scheme, or I don't know, something else will come along, just so we can go back to them and say, we need to, you know.
But we can only go for one, and we have to go for the accessible one on this occasion, but we know that's your next priority.
I'll take two last observations, one from Councillor Smith-Roberts and then from Councillor Stainthorpe, and then I think we ought to move to a vote on this.
I'm just actually checking what we're voting on, Mayor. I think I would like to make a proposal to write a new recommendation based on what's being said tonight, and the clerk can guide me and tell me that I'm not making sense if that's the case. Because I think we need to be really clear that the Section 106 money can be used on new equipment. It cannot be used to replace equipment. So I'm doing this off the top of my head. So I do think that the recommendation should be that we purchase a new piece of equipment for that park, whatever the colloquial name is for it, to the value of £19,000, providing the clerk with delegated powers in conjunction with the chair of Ops and Assets to make the final decision on purchase, but full council is recommending that that purchase, in review of the consultation with members of the public, be preferable to be something that is inclusive and accessible, that improves the accessibility of play equipment in that park.
Thank you.
Recommendation?
Councillor Stainthorpe, and then we'll come back to Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just really to back up what a number of other councillors have said in terms of, we have a duty to make sure there's accessible play equipment in all of the parks in Taunton, and this park does not have a piece of accessible play equipment. That has to be the first choice. I understand, yes, we put it out to the public, and as Councillor Patrick says, if you've got separate weightings, it's not easy to decide what is the public versus favourite versus what is required. But we do make a commitment to making sure that we have accessible play equipment. So as a new piece of equipment, that's the first piece that has to go in. And it's not saying that we won't find more funding for more play equipment, and that's across all of our play parks in Taunton.
Thank you, Councillor Stainthorpe. I think the procedure is I now need to go back to Councillor O'Donnell.
You had a proposal on the table.
Yes,
so you need to see.
I was going to ask Councillor O'Donnell if he's prepared to accept Councillor Smith-Roberts' revised proposal.
You've got the reasons, purpose of the report, and if I look at the if you look at what the recommendations are, the recommendations at the bottom are literally just to seek permission to go for the S106 money and to consider using further funds of 5,400 to improve the safety surfacing. So I think just need to remove all entirely from the report the single money bit, certainly. So and then add back the fact that at operations and assets we did say that it would be delegated powers of town clerk in conjunction with the chair of operations and assets. But Councillor Smith obviously might have to remind me. Yeah.
Yes, I think Councillor Smith-Roberts has made a very valid point. Yeah. Well, we do have a firm proposal. Could you just repeat that, please, Councillor Smith-Roberts? we will vote that amendment.
That this council supports the purchase of accessible. No, it wasn't that, was it? It was the purchase of play equipment up to the value of £19,000 coming from the Section 106 fund for new equipment, with delegated powers to the clerk in conjunction with the Ops and Assets chair to make the final decision, taking on board the consultation with members of the public. However, noting that our priority as a council is to improve the accessibility of our play equipment in our park.
Thank you, Councillor Smith-Roberts, for stating that very clearly.
I think that is recommendation one, because that adds the town clerk in consultation, but then with a view in mind that we are going to improve the accessibility of our parks.
Okay, so you've had a proposal, and then you need a seconder.
I need a seconder for Councillor Smith-Roberts' proposal. Councillor Packer Hughes. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that proposal confirmed. It's a knotty one. Thank you very much for everybody for their inputs. We don't want to lose the money, observation, and we're doing the only thing that we can practically do in circumstances. So thank you all for very lucid interventions on this one. We've got another one here. Members to consider the recommendation from the Operations and Assets Committee to full council to use up the £5,398.49 funding from the play equipment budget for the safety surfacing of the area where the new piece of play equipment is to be installed. That's the second part of the proposal on the agenda papers. Do I have a proposer? Councillor O'Donnell. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pollard. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that proposition carried. I take it now we can move on to item 18. Everybody's happy that we've covered everything? Yes. Thank you. I appreciate the consideration of all here. That brings me on to item 18, Trafalgar House. I call on Angela Farmer, our Financial Resilience Officer, to introduce the item.
Thank you. Good evening, members. Before you today is a paper that, if members remember from the previous papers we've presented to full council, confirms a revised budget for Trafalgar House for 25-26. The previous budgets that we've done had been on an estimate of the amount of loan that we would have to repay and the amount of year one costs that we would incur. We drew down the loan on the 16th of May, completing the purchase of Trafalgar House on the 19th of May. So we did coordinate on that one. The interest rate we got was 5.98%, a little bit higher than we had previously budgeted for, but there we are. So the budget is set out for you at Appendix 1. The repayment of the PWLB loan usually takes place in May and November, and because of the drawdown in May, we were fortunate to only actually have one repayment due for 25-26. Taking into consideration the other expenditure that we've incurred, we have actually ended up with a little bit of a surplus in the budget for 25-26. The intention with that money, if members approve that tonight, is to use that money to go towards the maintenance of the building, in particular the repair of the roof, which, as members will remember from previous reports, our surveyor, of the survey that we had, identified a number of issues that we need to put a remediation plan in place for. I would also point out as well that our insurance company have actually identified an excess on our current policy as well, on the basis of the roof issues, and they are requesting a remediation plan at the same time. In other news, in respect to Trafalgar House, we have, and members would agree from the 11th of March meeting, that we could employ an agent to manage the property. We have sought 3 quotes, and we have, after careful consideration by strategic leadership team, we have appointed Alder King. Members will remember that we used Alder King as an investment agent when we purchased the property, through the purchase of the property. We have a meeting with them on Thursday as a bit of a kick-off session. There are a number of obviously outstanding issues that you would expect. But we hope to be working with those over the next 3 years. The brief that we've given Alder King is slightly larger than the tenants would have had with their previous agent, so there will be some work to do with the tenants, and initial sort of engagement has been positive. In respect of general update, as I said, we have done an initial welcome letter out to all the tenants. In the main, that again, as I said, has been positive. There are 2 pieces of work that we will be looking at and have started looking at. Obviously, as I said, the work on the roof and the energy performance certificate assessment, which we are currently, majority of the units I think have an EPC rating of E, and the proposed legislation indicates that we will have to raise that to at least a B by 2030. So there is some work to do there, and the first stage of that will be to have an assessment of how we actually go from E to B. In that instance. Obviously, as members will recall as well, we Unit 1B, the tenants 4A have now vacated the unit. They vacated that in mid-May. as part of our process, we've had a dilapidations report done, and we're waiting the report of that. The unit is due to be relet. We said on the 1st of June. We've had a slight delay with that one, but we hope to relet that within the next couple of weeks. So overall, we are progressing. We've now the proud owners of this property, and hopefully with the agents in place as well, we will then start to move forward and do some of the things that we want to do on it. But I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do I have any questions of Angela before we proceed to a vote? Okay, you've heard the proposition. It's in 3 parts. One is to agree to the revised budget for 25-26 and give delegated authority to the RFO to utilise the surplus budget available to cover the cost of the remedial work subject to a tendering exercise to ensure best value is obtained and thus protect the fabric of the building and enable the insurance excess to be reduced. Secondly, to note the appointment of Alder King as the council's managing agents, and 3, to note the general update. If there are no objections, I will take these 3 items en bloc. Are you all happy that I do that? Good. We'll now proceed to a vote. Do I have a proposal, please? Councillor Pollard, do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Garside, all those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that resolution confirmed. Thank you very much indeed. That brings me on to item 19, the depot occupation proposal. And I now call on Paul Grant, Operations and Assets Manager, to introduce the report. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we are with the depot, which you'll be aware, taking a little while to get to this point from the proposals. For other buildings, full council agreed that we could go with E4B to, at the time, invest in what was a leasehold property. Obviously, that property is now ours as a freehold, and so that investment is going to give us the long-term security in value of that premise. Councillors probably remember that the original cost estimate that was agreed was £393,700. We went through a tendering process where we set the tender bar at 350 to challenge tenderers to put their tenders in at a price where we were more comfortable. We actually went with E4B at £330,870. There have been some variations required to that contract during the build, and you see those are 28,505. We're now at a point where the building has been handed over to us, and we've been able to get in and carry out our own assessment of what is now needed to get it fully occupied, so fully usable as an office space and as a depot to carry out all the functions that we're required to provide to deliver the services that are needed. So we were unable during the build to properly assess how we would use that, and with the help of our health and safety lead, we've now assessed all of those processes, all of those works that we'll carry out within the depot, and there are some measures that are required to facilitate that. Those are detailed at the bottom of the report in the appendix, and they're broken down into IT costs, for example, health and safety costs, staff welfare, storage and yard, and the office setup. So that includes things like, to align with Deane House, a breakout staff room with some sofas and some coffee tables, a lot of signage from a safety perspective, some barriers to keep pedestrians segregated from vehicles, where the vehicles drive through to the yard at the back, and such things as that. IT monitors, monitor supports and stands, and just the general stuff that's required to be operational. So we've totaled that up. There is an amount that's now required, which went through Ops and Assets, of £50,835. And because the money's coming from a budget to be spent on something other than the initial project. That's why it's come back to full council. So there are some big sums within that, some of which, or one of which was insisted upon by the planning department as a condition of being able to put the windows and things in the depot. Because of our environmental aspirations, they have insisted on secure cycle storage. So cycle rack is required for staff and for visitors. As part of that, we're compelled to provide that. And our insurers, because we've gone EV and battery operated on all of our equipment, our insurers have insisted on a specific cabinet that's required to make to charge those batteries. And that cabinet needs to be linked in with the fire alarm. It's very specific. It has fire suppression built within it, and it has to be 10 meters from the actual building. That's quite an expensive item, and that 50,000 is made up, including those items as well. So the proposal for today is to agree to the spend as mentioned by Ops and Assets Committee of up to 51,000 in accordance with the attached breakdown of costs by category from the 500-7415 for service growth and improvements, where there is currently a budget of £90,000 available. And the second recommendation is to accept a financial update to be presented to full council in July when we've got all the final figures in and are able to be using the depot fully and give you an update and actually invite you to come and have a look at it and see what the money's been spent on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. May I just say on behalf of the council, a lot of hard work has gone in behind the scenes, and thank you to you and your team for that input. Now the proposal is before you. Do I have any comments before we proceed to a vote? Councillor Solly?
Only just a bit of clarification. Will these total amount then go out for tender for the individual works or not? See the total amount.
So some of those works we had to commit to during the build process, and that included the EV battery charging bank, and that's included the cycle rack as well. So there are some fairly hard costs there that don't make up a sum that has to go to tender. There's been drips and drabs, and this is mostly safety related now that's required to actually finish it and get occupied. We already have a commitment with our IT people for the screens, the monitors. I think there's about 13K's worth there. So there's separate pockets. They're not a collective that requires us to go to tender. They're separate elements of works, hence they're broken down in the appendix on the report to hopefully explain that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, do I have any other comments? In that case, I'll proceed to a vote on the two items to agree to spend of up to 51,000 in accordance, excuse me, the attached breakdown of cost by category, 500 to 7415 service growth and improvements where there is a budget of 90,000, and secondly to accept a financial update to be presented to full council in July. Do I have a proposed name? Thank you, Councillor Solly. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor O'Donnell. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that proposal carried. Thank you very much indeed. That brings me on to the next item, item 20. I'm now going to call on Marcus Prowse, our Deputy Clerk and Office Manager, who's going to introduce this item. Neighbourhood Plan Designation.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. House, for your comments. Yeah, just to respond on a couple of those things, I think in relation to the difficulty of making a statement about the area, we have obviously run this past the principal planning officers at the Unitary Council, and they've advised that the letter from the council, which is included as an appendix within the report, should include the fact that the town council is a relevant body, request to designate the area, and if it is the whole area, then the letter apparently just needs to say that the date the council formally took the decision, and it will also be well received. The request included minutes all about the parish area and why the town council is looking to undertake a neighbourhood plan, if there are any particular topics that you're looking to explore. If you do not know that yet, that's okay, just the basic bullet point is fine. So appreciate the concerns raised by Mr. House, but I believe that the letter that is before you tonight as an appendix is adequate enough for the purposes for which Somerset Council require it. Just in terms of some of the other points around why it would be beneficial to correspond with the area, and I think it's picked up in the risks of the report. It's one of the main benefits, obviously, of having a neighbourhood plan, but get 25% of the civil receipts from new development that comes in the parish council area. So obviously, if you choose not to designate a specific part and concentrate on one area of the town, and that area is not part of the neighbourhood plan, then you would only get 15% for any development that comes in the area that doesn't have a plan. So Somerset Council would then get the 85% rather than 25%. And obviously, as you say, Taunton includes, picked up on it, very communities across the town, and I think the neighbourhood plan for the whole area would be able to capture those within the one document. Just heading back to the covering report. So following this, obviously, if you approve the recommendations tonight, Somerset Council will also carry out a 6-week period of consultation, so people will get a chance there to comment on the proposal as well. And then the responsibility for producing that neighbourhood plan will lie with us as a town or parish council. There is a requirement for 21 members to be on the working group, so the Planning, Development and Licensing Committee has made moves to set up that working group. There are 2 TTC councillors appointed on there already, and part of the recommendation there tonight is to run the recruitment and selection process for the 19 other members required, and apparently one Somerset councillor is also required to be a part of that group as well. So we'll make an approach there as well should you decide to proceed. Thank you. We have reached out to local consultancies, because obviously we recognise that and I believe one of them was on a briefing for you as councillors last summer, give you an understanding of the process. As you understand, obviously it's quite a lengthy process that developing a neighbourhood plan. It can recognise take up to 2 years. So it's quite an involved process, and not sort of one done overnight. I think that's it. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Marcus. I now throw this open for discussion before we will move to a vote. So Councillor Smith Roberts was first, then Councillor Furman.
I'm not having a neighbourhood plan because I get all the benefits of having a neighbourhood plan. My concern is, and having been at Somerset Western Taunton District and seen neighbourhood plans come forward, all everyone used to say was the amount of work that used to go into it to make those neighbourhood plans happen. And that was for populations that were probably not even half the size of Taunton, probably even a quarter of the size of Taunton. So I think my concern around this is, how do we create a neighbourhood plan for a population and geographic area that is as big as ours? I think I would like to understand if there's any other areas of the country, say Swindon, or another area that is of the same size that has been able to do this, because I just wonder whether there is the possibility of doing a neighbourhood plan, but doing them within wards or a collective of wards. I'm just deeply concerned as to how we make this work for a town that is as diverse and just huge, and both population and geography, and I just can't get my head around it. I want to be proven different, proven wrong, but I just wonder how it's going to work for such a size.
Yeah, I'm just getting some water. Is there any other comment that people might make? Councillor Ellis.
I'm just really keen to crack on with this. I have no doubt it's a massively huge job of work. and we will have to apply, maybe even apply for external grants and stuff that's flagged up in the report in order to complete this. But I mean, it's not just the fact that we get extra control over more of the revenue, which is important, because we're always saying that it's the money to be spent on Taunton is much better being spent and democratically agreed at Taunton Town Council level than leaving Somerset Council to decide what it does with the SIL money. So I'm really anxious that we crack on with this. We had a good presentation of explaining quite a lot about it, didn't we, a couple of months ago, by a consultant who's done a lot of this, and we're going to have our hands held. We can have a consultant who's been through this before, and I think it will be all hands on deck. So even if you're not officially on the working group, I think each and every one of us are going to have to, pull our finger out and get involved in this. But this isn't something that we cannot do, or what we cannot do as well is faff around and think, oh, do we need to split it up and do one for here and one for there? That would be more of a nightmare in my view.
Councillor Furman.
Thank you. Almost a bit contrary to that, I think being able to have subdivided within that document different areas that want to be able to do different things within their patch that are maybe slightly different from a sort of generalised policy might be quite a good idea.
Councillor Tully was next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, but I don't think any of you really know what you're talking about. My colleague next to me definitely knows, because he was involved with West Monkton when I was on it. The amount of work involved in West Monkton was about 25 to 30 people. 2 clerks working for almost full time on it. It's not. This is a hard job. It's going to take a lot. Even if you get the experts, and we were lucky enough to have experts. We were lucky enough to have contractors as our expert. But how the heck you're going to get it done in 2 years with all the other consultations we have to put out? It's going to be very, very difficult. I'm sorry, I don't think you're going to do it. I'm sorry, I agree. I can understand people thinking, yes, we must do it. Yes, we must, but we're leaving it late. Sorry.
Marcus.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was just doing a quick bit of research on Councillor Smith-Roberts' points about the largest town councils working on neighbourhood plans. There was Bracknell, which is a population of 50,000, Lowestoft 70,000. Royal Leamington Spa neighbourhood area designated, Ramsgate 40,000, Farnham 40,000 neighbourhood plan made July 2017. So there are larger places that have it, but obviously here. Thank you.
Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, it was just to clarify that if with one neighbourhood plan, it's not that it wouldn't look at the needs of different neighbourhoods. So there'll be a lot of, I would think, a lot of colour and things reflecting the priorities and the distinctiveness of different neighbourhoods in Taunton, so that wouldn't be sacrificed. But I just think, yes, it is, yes, hard work. Well, tough luck. We're just going to have to roll up our sleeves, and if we do end up needing extra resource, come back, ask for extra resource. You've got an MP who's a bit of an expert in this area, so I'm sure on his behalf I could probably say he'd be very keen to help in whatever way he can. This is doable. You've got a lot of goodwill in this town. You've got a lot of people with a lot of expertise and a lot of nous. I think people rally round. So I say let's go for it and get cracking.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Packer-Hughes.
I'd like to secondly throw the MP under the bus on this one. To be involved, making work for myself in my day job, possibly. But my original reason I raised my hand is my understanding is that yes, you thank you for the confirmation, Marcus, that you can have larger plans that will take account of the unique needs of the different neighbourhoods. And if it is that much work to produce a plan for something the size of West Monkton, think how much work it will be if we had to produce 5 or 10 neighbourhood plans. If 6,000 was the prime number for a neighbourhood, whenever that was decided, we could have 10 of those. How much work and how long would that take The economies of scale of doing it once and considering everything, and we are one town. We might have different neighbourhoods within it, but we are one town and we all interlink. And a plan for one area will, by its very nature, need to reflect what's happening 2 streets away in another neighbourhood. So I think there's wisdom in taking on a bit of a mammoth challenge. I appreciate it as mammoth, but there's wisdom in doing it in one fell swoop and having a really coordinated plan. There's been constant criticism about the fact there isn't joined up thinking on Taunton over the years, that things haven't been linked up, that there's left hand isn't talking to the right hand. This is a fantastic opportunity to have an overarching umbrella plan that makes everything work together.
Thank you. I agree with you 100%. We can't have half a dozen neighbourhood plans. It doesn't work. It's got to be one neighbourhood plan for the whole town. Otherwise, it'll never work. It's impossible. Because you have one neighbourhood deciding on one thing, another neighbourhood deciding on something else. A neighbourhood plan could also put in what they think about buildings, about construction. They could do all that. You can't have different people saying, well, in my neighbourhood, I don't want that, I want old cottages. You've got to get that way. But don't let's hide it. It's a hard work. I don't know what Councillor Isaac would think, but we took 30 of us, and it took a lot of work and a lot of time for a town. And we had to deliver to every single house information. We had no option. You have to do that. You've got no option. You know what it's like in an election trying to get stuff out. That's exactly what it's like. So before you start jumping and thinking, if we can do it, can we do it? Marcus, how long did those towns take to get it through? Marcus.
Thank you, Councillor. I believe for the Bracknell one, I've just looked, so it was 2021 it was made, so it appears it's sort of couple of years there to get through. It says, yeah, on the website that it took many years, so it's not a quick process. I think it's
Trolls took 5 years. Sorry, I know I'm not allowed to talk, but Trolls took 5 years. We were the first.
There's an old biblical saying, it's not for you to complete the work. Sorry, it's not for you to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. This is a long-term exercise, and I'd just like to make that as an observation. What the decision is, I can't comment on. That's for the body this evening. Councillor Isaacs, your name has been mentioned. Would you like to begin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is a very laborious process. A lot of it is with engagement with the parishioners or the residents, sending out surveys and drawing all that together. The process is laid down, but it is laborious. It can take a long time to do. But I'm sure with the will and the really good councillors and people officers we have in the town council, we can make this happen. But it is going to be hard work and several other working parties and committees. So I agree with Councillor that we just got to get on with it and do it the very best with the process so that it's done effectively. I think Mr. Tully and Councillor Tully was going to reply. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you, Councillor Isaacs. It's good to know once again that there are councillors in the room who have had experience of this in the past. Thank you for your contributions. I'm now going to read out the resolution, which we really have to move to vote on. To following request of Somerset Council to designate the whole Taunton Town Council area as a neighbourhood area for the purpose of preparing a neighbourhood plan. 2, to request the neighbourhood plan working group commence the process for the preparation of a neighbourhood plan. 3, to request the chair and vice chair of the Planning, Development and Licensing Committee to work with relevant officers to run the recruitment and selection process for the 19 other members required, with at least one Somerset councillor being included who is not a twin hatter. Councillor Solly and Councillor Tully having already been appointed by the aforesaid committee. And 4, to approve a delegation to the clerk to make the necessary applications to supply the council with the grants to fund the consultancy work to support this process. But should this funding not be secured or not be sufficient, to utilise up to £25,000 of funds from the stewardship budget. I'm going to take this en bloc now. All those, do I have a proposal first of all? Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tully. All those in favour? All those against? Any objections? Any abstentions rather? Noted. I declare that carried, but not unanimously. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 21. Licence fees for gate access. I now call on Marcus Prout, the Deputy Clerk and Office Manager, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope you've had a chance to report. So the recommendations for you tonight on there are A or B. So to whether to continue with the charging regime, which is set out in the report that we inherited from Somerset Council when we took over Victoria Park on creation in April 2023. So as it says, sets out in the report, we received correspondence from a resident earlier this year that questioned the following matters in relation to the invoicing and did some further investigation. A number of issues were highlighted about how non-payment of this mechanism, what position was there in relation to the deeds covenants, and why the parks that had properties with similar arrangements, e.g. back gates facing onto the green, were not charged. So we undertook to look into the title registers of the properties, and it makes no reference to any rights of way or easements following residents of Priory Avenue to access their property via council land. I think I would draw attention to the council that from a cost benefit perspective, given the limited income of £25 per annum, alongside the associated administration of the charge that the council incurs in terms of the invoicing and billing, it may be preferable to discontinue this. The measures to lock those gates for residents who refuse to comply, how that would be managed going forward, potential negative PR applications, have set out on the other side that obviously there is the TTC is acknowledged as having, wishing to increase its revenue generation. It's heavily reliant on its precept, and whilst the income from this charge is not huge, the gate access does confer a benefit for the residents who do take advantage of it. A licence may also protect the council from claims of right of way to council-owned lands, and licences are legal documents which allows the council to control and permit the use of their land under a clear set of terms and conditions. There are a few councils across the country that implement a system for charging for gate access licensing agreements, and some of those examples are in the report. The charges, I think it's recognised for Taunton, are lower than others, and as part of reviewing our fees and charges, if this was something that you wish to continue doing, we'd have to review that charge in line with the fees and charges to make sure that it does cover its costs. The fact that Victoria Park is a public open space that the public would expect to access may also be a relevant consideration for you. So happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcus. I now open up this for discussion. Any contributions?
Councillor Twos.
Councillor Twos.
Thank you. Not a question, Mr. Mayor, as such, just as board member for Victoria, I have talked to the residents on Priory Avenue, and the findings in the report are correct, that it seems to be a mixed bag where some people have paid for years, some people haven't paid at all. I'm happy to hear the opinion of other members, obviously, and I realise that every penny we can generate is important, but I do feel, having talked to the residents, if we try to make this fair and get everyone to pay, there will be people who say, I just want this blocked, and by the time you finished either enforcing the payments or blocking the parks, I think it will cost a lot more in officers' time than we can raise, given there's so few houses along there, really.
Councillor Fraschini.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I think this is a ludicrous thing anyway, charging people for access to a public park. I mean, people are taxed enough. Can we just do them a favour and just get rid of this thing and stop wasting our time over this? That would be great.
Councillor Stainford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would sort of echo that, but yeah, I think we should discontinue this charge. It's such a small amount of revenue. Yes, I know every penny counts when it comes to revenue, but the cost of administration for this and the number of houses involved, it doesn't stack up. And if we then have to chase for payment from certain residents that haven't, we're going to lose money on it. So I think we discontinue it. It's a public park. Move on from.
Thank you, Councillor Stainford. Councillor Furman.
It was Federica Smith.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see. Councillor Smith-Roberts and then Councillor Furman.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add some history to this, going back to the SWT days, this was actually brought in to mirror the fact that Vivery Park also had the same access. So it was bringing kind of an even keel across the accessibility in parks. I would be interested to note from our Deputy Clerk, you noted that if we allow to remove the charge, and I'm comfortable removing the charge, it's just around that public right of way access legality piece. So is there anything that says that we were then constantly allowing access? And I'm not saying that we would never not allow access, but it's the fact that the gates open out onto the park. Is that what you're saying? It's that actually you're constantly just giving a right all the time, and under law that would be what would be seen.
Councillor Furman and then Councillor Fernandez.
Can Marcus respond?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Could Marcus respond, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mann. Thank you, Councillor Smith-Roberts, for the question. Yeah, so I think that's where I've tried to set out that obviously if you don't have that express permission in the form of a licence, they could say, you know, as after 20 years and then living there, they could say I've acquired a right of easement to go out into that park at will. But as I say, with the dip test that we did on the title register and on the title register of Victoria Park, we haven't got any restrictions from residents that have made those registrations with the land registry. And as you say, the fact that it is an open space, it may include us from that anyway. Obviously, if Victoria Park was to be used for something like, say, the concerts that we do at Victoria Park, there would be possibility, as I understand that there is with the Vivery Park, to fence off and stop residents being able to access a paid for event such as a ticketed concert for free, or whether the concert organisers would offer and work with residents to in that eventual scenario of working with them, given the disruption. I know events sometimes do that. Thank you.
So if I
Thank you, Marcus. Councillor Furman and then Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you. Yes, no, I was just going to say that most of these parks you can just walk into them anyway, so this is a bit pointless with putting a lock on some people's doors.
Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to say, I just fully support the comments from Councillor Fraschini and also Councillor Tees, and I think we should discontinue this. It's more money, but it would take more money to be good.
So two more contributions, Councillor Smith-Roberts and Councillor Tully, and then I'd like to move to vote, please. Councillor Smith-Roberts.
Thank you for allowing me to come back. It was just in relation therefore then, and I'm not sure whether it's a risk or not, as to whether we still give a licence but we just don't charge for it. So therefore it means that we stay in control because of the right of access, but it does mean that actually we're just doing it for free. And I know that's administrative burden, but it does just mean that we are reviewing our riskometer, for want of a better phrase, to then see what's available to us.
Thank you. Councillor Tully, and then we'll move to a vote.
Thank you, Chair. I was thinking the same as you were about Vivery Park. There's access to Vivery Park from people living on the park area. We don't charge them a fee, so why should we charge anybody else? A public park is a public park, and I would recommend that we actually get rid of it once and for all.
Just to clarify, Ivory Park is charged a fee, and because of the licence, when events happen, we can revoke that licence access on the day that flower shows and everything else happens.
For residents.
It is for the ones that back onto the parkway, because I have to revoke the licence when events happen.
Thank you very much.
We go to Amber and then you go to.
Councillor Backer-Hughes.
Just want to come back to that because it's in my ward, but it's not my park. Just to remind you that Ivory Park is not controlled by Taunton Council, which is why we don't charge a licence fee. Somerset Council do. It's a slightly different setup because Ivory Park is a lockable park when there are events. There is, there's more labour involved in actually closing those gates off when there are events. So it's slightly different to Victoria Park, but it's not us that levies the licence. It is not our park.
Thank you very much, Councillor Backer-Hughes. Now, this particular.
Councillor Twos has had his hand up.
I'm sorry, I'm just counting two.
Sorry, if you would.
Then we'll move to a vote.
I just wondered if you were going to vote, because it sounded like there was a silly proposal from Councillor Smith-Roberts about the zero licence. I didn't hear the fact,
I'm about to clarify the proposal. So thank you, Councillor Twos. I've already noted that. The two parts of this proposal actually contradict each other. We either vote to continue with it or we vote to discontinue with it. Now, the mood of the meeting, as I understand it, is we discontinue the charge, but we consider the possibility of introducing a licence at no charge as part of the resolution. Is that correct, Councillor Smith-Roberts?
If that's something that the Deputy Clerk and Clerk says we can do under whatever rules we can work by, that would, I just think that gives a bit of protection to us.
I agree.
We will look into, if you make that as your resolution, if there's any issues with it, the legalities of it, we'll come back to you.
I'm happy to propose that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith-Roberts. So I will read out the resolution as I believe I've understood the mood of the meeting. Is to discontinue the charging regime inherited from Somerset West and Taunton Council and refund all residents who've already paid the fee for 2025, which is a total of around £450, but with the option to be looked into of a licence at no charge for this particular purpose. Is that okay? Yeah. Thank you very much, Dan Clark. Do I have a proposer for the amended licence? Councillor Smith-Roberts. Seconder, Councillor Twos. And all those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that confirmed. Thank you very much indeed. I agree. We need to suspend standing orders if we're to continue past 8 o'clock. Is the mood of the meeting to have a 5-minute break, or do you want to carry on? Carry on. I will carry on. Okay. So we've approved standing orders for another 30 minutes, and then we'll review. So 8:30. Item 22. Letters to Somerset Council.
Do you need to take a vote
on what? Oh, I'm so sorry. I do apologise. Yes, we do have to take a vote. Proposer to extend standing orders for half an hour. Councillor Furman, Councillor Fernandez seconding. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. We'll go on to 8:30, then we'll review the situation at that point. And I will try and get through this agenda as quickly as possible, but taking into account all the reasonable comments that were made. Item 22. Letter to Somerset Council, provision of permanent pictures for gypsy and traveller communities. I now like to call on Marcus Prowse, our Deputy Clerk and Office Manager, to introduce this item. Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I hope councillors have had a chance to consider the reports. And I understand the letter that's to go to the leader of Somerset Council was circulated Thursday. So just to give a brief background, obviously, Taunton Town Council since its inception has faced incidents of trespass on its open spaces each spring, disrupting community events. Obviously, the events of the last week shown that. I believe that the costs for evicting these encampments to date this year in terms of the bailiff costs and around around £20,000 just for that, and that doesn't include obviously the officer time spent in cleaning up, the costs involved in disposal of the waste that is required to be disposed of. So it is costing Taunton Town Council significant amounts of money. So the letter that is before you requests urgent proactive steps to address the issue in light of recent incursions. Somerset Council, as the Strategic Housing Authority, must address gypsy and traveller accommodation needs under the Housing Act and planning policy for traveller sites.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Open comments, Councillor Smith-Roberts.
I'm sorry, guys, that I talk so much, but I just need to propose some changes to this letter on reading it. Just to note that I kind of also oversee equalities at Somerset Council, and I'm looking at finding a transient site, because what is actually needed within Somerset in general, but in particular along the M5 corridor, is a transient site, not a permanent site. We can say that we want both, but actually in order for stopover accommodation to be happening, it's not a permanent site where people live all the time. It's the ability to stop over and move on as the GRT community move through the southwest. So if we can update it that it's a provision of permanent and transient sites, but with the emphasis on transient, that is what's required. And that also allows people like the police to be able to move people onto those sites quicker rather than gaining access onto. I'd also think that we need to note the impact as well on other public sector. We say Musgrave Park Hospital, but with the police sat here behind me, we do know the additional resource that is required by them when unauthorised encampments take place as well. So I think that's an element to add. I do believe that there are listening ears at Somerset Council. As I've advised, we are looking for transient sites. That's gone out within the local plan as a call for sites, but also where I've requested our executive director to start looking at that for the M5 corridor, so if anyone knows of any land that is available at a reasonable cost, then that is something that we would welcome at Somerset Council to hear from.
Thank you very much. Can I just ask if everybody's in favour of the amendment which has come from Councillor Smith-Roberts? Just
second.
Marcus, could you please amend that, unless anybody's got any violent objection to that statement by Councillor Smith-Roberts? I would, before I take any further comment, just like to thank the police on behalf of Taunton Town Council. These incidents have been occurring with increased frequency, and we'd like to thank you for your prompt attention and cooperating with us. It's a difficult problem for the people of Taunton, and we thank you for your input on that. I'd now like to move on to other observations. Councillor Caroline Ellis.
Yeah, no, I was just going to second what Fred was saying about transit pitches. That's why we've got the problem that we have now with our parks. It's not that they want to come and live here permanently. It's people travelling and they haven't got any other option. So we're, they end up on places where they shouldn't be with unauthorised encampments. So it is the issue that we're facing is in relation to there is an issue about lack of permanent sites, but the problem that we've been having is in relation to the lack of transit sites specifically. And I think that the more pressure we can bring to bear on Somerset Council to put significant resource and put a sense of urgency behind this, because it's getting ridiculous. It's getting absolutely ridiculous now, and there will be displacement. Fortunately, it won't be on our parks if the next item goes through. But that we don't want the displacement. We want this permanent, a permanent solution found to this, so that we don't have to go through this year after year. So yeah, let's amend it and let's have a very strong message around urgent need to resolve the lack of transit site.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Isaacs.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree with Councillor Ellis and Councillor Smith-Roberts. I think it's really, really important that we act with urgency on that. Just one point really to our clerk, deputy clerk. So it says on the recommendations to request the finance and government to review the unauthorised encampment policy and procedures. Could you circulate that to the committee so that we could review it at a later event? Come back to that as a proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Isaacs. Councillor Tully.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? You know, I remember when I was a boy living on a farm, we welcomed the gypsies. They helped with the labour on the farm. I must admit, we used thrashers and not combines in those days. Now we want to get rid of them. And I agree, they do make a mess. They're a bigger problem than we can do with. But since 1964, the government keep coming up, government after government of all different colours. They need permanent sighting, they need transit sighting. They did well. They closed most of the places they used to park. 80% disappeared by 1973, where they used to park. We've now got to go back, and I agree with what Frederica's saying. Yes, one transit site, great. Probably 3 or 4 is what we're looking at. Somerset's a large county. Northamptonshire and Hertfordshire both tried this to have permanent sites. It doesn't work because when they move on, they also move all the fittings in the toilets and that. So it does work, but transit sites do work. But it's something we need to not only go to the council behind us, to the Somerset Council, we also send it to the MP. Let him bring him up in Parliament. Let them talk it. Because I read a report this afternoon, the times the report's gone through to the Home Office and to other departments, and it gets kicked in the long grass. No one wants to know. Well, it's come and hit us. It has other parts of the country. So I think we ought to now go one step farther. Thank you, Chair, for letting me speak.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. As Mayor, you'll appreciate I can't take a political view of this, but as a general observation as Mayor, I would say this is bigger than any local authority. This is a public issue, and in my personal view, it should be raised in Parliament for the law to be looked at, because the powers of individual councils are very severely restricted at the moment. I won't say any more than that. It would be inappropriate for me to do so, but I thank you for all your contributions. Is there anything else anyone wants to say before we move to a vote on this? Thank you. With the amendment that we've got from Councillor Smith-Roberts, number 1, the approval of the attached letter being sent to the leader of Somerset Council regarding urgent proactive steps to address this issue in the light of recent incursions. Secondly, to note the further work being undertaken by the Operations and Asset Service, overseen by the Operations and Assets Committee, to implement further measures to secure Taunton Town Council assets against trespassing. Thirdly, to request the Finance and Governance Committee to review the unauthorised encampment policy and procedure. Do I have a proposal, please? Councillor Pollard. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Tully. All those in favour? All those against? Do I have any abstentions? I consider that unanimously confirmed. Councillor Tully, you wanted to say something?
Yes, would a copy of this be sent to our MP?
I think that would be a good idea personally, but it's up to this body to agree that. All those in favour of that being sent to the MP? Oh, I should have taken a second, I'm sorry. Councillor Tully, do I have a second? To send this letter to the MP. Councillor O'Donnell, all those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that amendment carried. Councillor Tully's proposal that a copy of the letter be sent to the MP. I think that's good practice. Thank you, because this is a national issue. It's not just Taunton. Thank you so much for that. That brings me on to item 23. Now this is Parks. The Group Access Restrictions, Operations and Assets Recommendation. I'd now like to call on Councillor O'Donnell and Paul Brown, the Operations and Assets Manager, to introduce this item.
Thank you.
Who's going to speak? Nick?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, following on what we just discussed, in the lack or absence of anywhere else available, there have been certain incursions and unlawful occupations on our parks, and these measures outlined in this report, which I'm going to take as read, go some way to help prevent those from happening again and to ensure that our parks are freely available to all our residents. We have already implemented some measures in Priorswood Park, and we know from talking to residents that those were successful. That there has been no unlawful encampment at Priorswood Park this year because they were unable to gain access to the park. You can see all the measures that are being implemented, all the types of obstacles that we are using, and just to say, it's outlined in the report how much it's costing us to remove unlawful encampments each time, and this we're trying to save that future cost. So I shall leave it at that, and can assume we can just take the recommendations all at once.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Does anybody else want to say something on this point? Councillor Smith-Roberts.
Just to say, I'm for these taking place. I do wonder, and I have spoken to the deputy clerk today about it, about linking up with Somerset Council's unauthorised encampment team. They've got lots of different experience as well around protecting different places and the different measures that are used, as well as also just improving our general knowledge around unauthorised encampments. It might just be useful to do that. I also think, and it's slightly related to this report, or whether it's related to the last report, is just about how to educate residents in relation to unauthorised encampments, whether we need our website to have some frequently asked questions around what we can and can't do. Also around making sure that when they employ tradespeople, that they use people who are licensed waste carriers, because if there is work available, then people will go to where that work may be. So it's around residents also being aware of using those who have licenses to dispose of waste, because then that can sometimes discourage encampments from taking place. So I just think that there are just several elements to this. But the most important thing is probably that letter that we're going to send to Somerset Council that helps provide transient sites.
Thank you, Councillor Smith-Roberts. Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just looking at the Appendix 1 schedule of recommended works, and I know that unfortunately Comitro Park was considered a low risk due to very limited space, but obviously as we've seen, it's not a low risk, and I think we just need to just ensure that maybe look again at some of the parks just to see where, if possible, those, because if there is any way of getting in, we'll get in. Thank you.
Councillor Toos, Councillor Ellis, Councillor Stainthorpe, Councillor Isaacs,
I think Paul wants to
and Paul. Can we bring in Paul first, because you're obviously managing the process on our behalf?
Thank you.
Then we'll go in order, please.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to respond to Councillor Fernandez's points in that since the incursion at Penny's Field, I've gone back and reassessed some of those parks. At Hamilton Park this weekend, they gained access by sawing off some of the existing posts. So and now reconsidering some additional measures there that are included on the amended report. So there's an extra bit of funding that's required from the initial report. There is an updated one, and the additional measures are highlighted on that appendix for those two parks, for Hamilton and for Penny's Field and for Lingford Park.
Thank you for that, Paul. And I know Councillor Tully and myself as ward councillors, there's been a lot of disquiet in the area about this, and any restrictions we make have actually got to do the job. And they're getting very clever at bypassing all these restrictions we put in. But we'll now pass on. Who's next in this?
It's Councillor Furman.
Oh, Councillor Furman next.
Ellis, then
Councillor Toos, I know, was up for a while back.
Going on the list.
And then Councillor Deane and Councillor Stein.
it was Kathleen and then me.
Confused.
Councillor Ellis.
No, I strongly welcome this. I'm relieved. I was thinking, oh gosh, we'll have to extend it to Lingford, so I'm great that that's been already bottomed out and taken into account. So we've got pretty comprehensive coverage. If we need to then go back later and put in additional, well, we have to, but this is a really important move. My question is how long will this take and what's the sort of order of priority? Because this is going to keep happening. It's with them, you know, this is like the season of it. There will be further encampments, so we have to move as fast as possible, obviously doing a proper job, but we have to kind of act as swiftly as possible, because you know this, once it's done, this will save us money, because it's, I forget what it, someone can remind me how much it actually costs to deal with an unauthorised encampment, both the legal side of things and instructing this person to do that and whatever, and the cleanup as well, and the repairing the damage, because there's so much damage usually caused, that this will pay for itself. So we have to invest now, because this will pay for itself, and it will relieve residents of an awful lot of strain and worry. I mean, we've been lucky we haven't had an encampment, but there has still been the fear, knowing how, you know, insecure it is. And you know, so that even where it hasn't happened, residents have been very, very worried about the prospect of it, and just feeling that literally no park is kind of safe. So I very strongly welcome this. I hope it can be done as speedily as humanly possible, so that we can get back to normalcy.
Councillor Twos was next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I welcome this, and I think it's good that it seems to come around quite quickly. So thank you to the team for that. And also it represents money well spent for me, because we've heard that each incursion costs money, takes staff away from other jobs that they've been scheduled in to do the clean up. So I definitely think this will pay dividends in the end. I watched all your verbal reports at Ops and Assets, and I heard, like, obviously I agree, we don't want to turn our parks into sort of like army bases with wires and barbed wire and everything. I guess my question for you, Paul, is if we see incursions continuing despite these initial measures, do we have headspace to increase the security if needed?
Thank you for the question. Hopefully there are multiple layers through which people have to pass. For example, some reinforced posts plus a height restriction should be sufficient. I think we all know that if somebody is that determined to gain access to a premises, whether it be an open park or whether it be a locked premise, they will find a way in. So I think you have to be realistic in that. And I agree, we don't want to turn our parks and our open spaces into fortresses and spoil the enjoyment of people, and particularly the aesthetics in some of our parks, which are beautiful. So that's why these measures are a range of different things, hopefully appropriate to each separate environment. And we spoke previously at Ops and Assets about Taunton Green having a very nice access into the park, so we wouldn't want to put a height barrier, but it's appropriate further back in the park where we're exiting off the car park onto the green space. So a lot of these measures are to blend with the natural aesthetic rather than putting concrete posts in. I've gone for oak posts, but with some additional features that we'll do in-house, hopefully to increase the resilience of those.
Thank you, Paul. I'll take 3 further comments. Councillor Stainthorpe, Councillor Fraschini and Councillor Solly and Councillor O'Donnell, and then we will move to a vote. So first of all, Councillor Stainthorpe.
Let's go back to Paul Grant again. Obviously Pennisfield, I've been which is the nature, and Pennisfield's in the middle of my ward. A question has to be how you secure Pennisfield, because Pennisfield, the long side of Pennisfield runs the length of College Road. It's a big area, and the other side actually backs onto primary school, Bishop's Henderson. So when first of all you've got children on the side, yeah, which is a great concern. but also the access from college. How were you able to manage to secure that without taking over the fortress?
Okay, thank you for that. So Pennyfield has 180 metres road frontage along Queensway, and there are a number of trees that are evenly spaced along there. So the proposal for Pennyfield would be to put oak posts interspersed in line with the trees, which cuts down on the cost, doesn't interrupt the roots because of the depth to which they'll be put in the ground and concreted in. Where the drop curb is, which is towards the fish and chip shop end, we would put 2 of the retractable posts in that we fitted at Prizewood. They would be keyed alike for ease of maintenance. Going out on the other side, my granddaughter goes to the school. The school was very, very quick to say to parents, they're closing that gate, they lock that gate, and they improve their own defences on that side of the school. So they've got a process already in place. And the other exits, when you go around the park, actually aren't wide enough to get a vehicle through. So it's quite well protected along the street.
And the primary school
and to the cul-de-sacs there. So hopefully that would be sufficient without spoiling the environment.
Thank you, Paul. Now we've got 3 more comments. Could you please keep them brief? We really do need to move on. So first of all, Councillor Fraschini.
Thank you, Chair. I guess for me, and probably what wants quite a lot of people for our residents, and probably what could help is an explanation of the law itself, because for a lot of people, these people can come, break the law, do what they want, and nothing happens. They move on, they come back, they do it again. It's a never-ending cycle. So for me, the greatest deterrent, and I'm assuming that the reason why they're allowed to do what they do and no prosecutions or charges are brought against them is because there's no evidence of them doing it. It's not being seen. So why aren't we installing CCTV? Because I'm sure if they then go and do an unauthorised encampment, CCTV, the police pop on, who broke in? There you go, done. Is that not the answer to what we need to do? Because it just seems backwards that they get away with absolute murder, and the taxpayer then has to pick it up, and then everybody else is then stretched. So I think that we need an actual plan as opposed to more of a deterrent with actually capturing them with evidence so the police can then arrest them and press charges, as opposed to fortifying the place all the time. And they'll, as you said, they'll get through anyway. So if they want to, they want to, but at the moment they know they're not being caught. That's why they do it.
Thank you, Councillor Fraschini. Before I move on to the other councillors, could I just ask a representative from the police to comment on that?
You'd need to suspend your standing orders.
I will suspend standing orders. Could I have?
You need to vote.
Do I have a proposer to suspend standing orders so that we can ask the police to comment? Or do I have Councillor Firmin? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Fraschini? All those in favour? All those against? Thank you very much. That's carried. Any abstentions? I should have asked. Thank you, because we really do need to wind up this debate, but it's a very important one. So I'm now able to ask the police, would you please like to comment at this stage on your take on this?
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, it's probably too big a subject to get into tonight for that sort of thing, but it's not as simple as put up a CCTV camera and then be able to identify somebody. We've got numerous occasions from numerous encampments where CCTV is possibly there, but it doesn't give us the evidence to then prosecute or to even identify somebody. So it sounds like if you had the perfect image, then we would obviously take action and look to do what we can do. But the reality of that is it's not as pure and simple as identifying somebody from CCTV and then being able to prosecute. It's not quite clear. But we have kind of opened up from a police point of view to try and speak to people to try and explain our powers and our processes and the reality of that. So we are kind of continuing work to continue that to kind of explain from our point of view how we would then action. So yeah, highly recommend that people want that. That's something we'll do that.
Thank you very much indeed for that observation. Councillor Fraschini, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. We now go back to the meeting proper. Councillor Solly, and then Councillor O'Donnell, and then we will move to a vote, please.
Whilst I agree to this, I'm thank everybody's time in getting it to this point because it's definitely needed. I'd probably echo residents' thoughts and mine personally. Sadly, it needs to come to this point that we need to invest more money because people want to vandalise something that surely isn't, well, is everybody's to enjoy. It's just sad that, you know, every so often we have to invest more and more in our park, not for people to enjoy, but for the safety to, you know, for people not to vandalise. And some of the stories I've heard this evening of, you know, people just abusing these parks, and you know, whether these people going there for the day to sit and enjoy, whether they have sports or even if they back onto the parks. This is a massive worry for residents and us as councillors and us as a council. But yeah, it's sad that we have to agree to, you know, for this change and this measure to go in place because people want to vandalise a great space. But yeah, as we need to, I do agree on it.
Thank you, Councillor Solly. Councillor O'Donnell, just a brief comment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to propose this, but I'm just conscious as well that I don't think Councillor Ellis got a response to her question of how long this is going to take. I was wondering if Paul could give us an indication of how long it will take us to.
As you've raised that, Councillor O'Donnell, Councillor Ellis, is that the case? Want more information?
Yeah, I think there was something about, was it I seem to remember in the original report 3 to 6 months, but I think we need to press sort of urgent on this because we're just having such frequency of visits. So I'd just like to get some indication.
Are we able to do that, Paul?
Yeah, certainly I can do that. So whereas initially with Prizewood Park, we went to a contractor to deliver all of the elements, we proposed doing most of this in-house. We've now got the open spaces team set up. We're all on board with what needs to be done. The only elements we're putting to a contractor would be the height barriers because they're doing that all day, every day. And what we don't want to do is have 3 millimeters out at the bottom and find we're a foot out at the top and it doesn't fit. So whilst I have every confidence in the team to deliver the rest of the works, I think that is the element that we'll contract. All the posts, all the drop-down posts, the hoops in Victoria Park and all the rest of it we can do with the in-house team, and they've got the equipment now with the proper post hole borer that goes on the back of a tractor to do the job quite quickly. I would hope to get all of this in place before the August bank holiday and that weekend because that's prime time. If we get further incursions in the interim, I can't go any faster. We've got to balance it with the rest of the work that needs to be done.
Thank you very much, Paul. I've now got to suspend standing orders because we're running out of time again. Do I have a proposal to suspend standing orders to defer the meeting end till 9 o'clock? Councillor Furman, do I have a seconder? Councillor Pollard, all those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that carried. I will just say, before we say anything else, I have allowed this discussion to carry on. Although it's been a long discussion, but it's a very important one, and I can gather from the tone of the meeting that the comments made are very apposite. Councillor O'Donnell, was there an observation you wanted to make on this?
I'm just going to propose.
We will now move to a proposal. The proposal is members to consider the recommendations from the Operations and Assets Committee. The recommendations made by Ops and Assets Committee at the meeting held on the 5th of June 2025 was to support the installation of various measures to Taunton Town Council parks as above to restrict unauthorised access up to a value of £35,000.
That's been amended to 46.
It's now been, an update following further incursions at Hamilton and Lincoln Parks. We've now amended that figure of 35,000 to 46,000, including additional works. To recommend this proposal to full council to use EMR funding from budget 344 fences and gates. Now, Councillor O'Donnell's already proposed this. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pollard. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that confirmed. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for the time this has taken up, but as I said, this has been a very emotive and very important debate. Thank you very much indeed. That brings me on to item 24, Playparks accessibility tender. This is another Ops and Assets recommendation, and I'd like to call on Councillor O'Donnell and or Paul Grant, Operations and Asset Manager, to introduce this item.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. That's hear from me again. About 15 months ago, we commissioned a review of all our play parks to look at their accessibility, inclusivity, and play value. That report came out in September, and we established a working group to look into actions that we could take to improve the values of our play parks. And that's improve the values across accessibility, inclusivity, and play value. The report recommended we spend somewhere in the region of 800,000 to 1.2 million. As you see from the report, which I'm going to take as read again, that we have from various EMR budgets, paths, play equipment, up to 260,000, plus 100,000, plus the 150,000 pounds we spend on parks this year. That brings us up to 500 or 500,000. We're quite a way short. This means that we've always agreed that we would look for further funding from the National Lottery and from other S106 options. To apply for those, of course, you'll see from the report that when you're applying for those kind of grants, they want to see evidence that a consultation has taken place. You can see that consultation taking place with young people, they particularly mentioned. There's a possibility of us looking for S106 money for 63,000, but other forms of funding. So there's a lot to do. There's 12 parks looking at the accessibility, that's the surface. It's looking at the play value, that's looking at the type of equipment we have, looking at inclusivity. So again, as we've already discussed, making sure that's a good range of play equipment that's accessible by everyone in this town and every child in this town. So that is a monumental piece of work. That's probably quite a lot for one council to do. So it has been, so officers approached us to suggest that we actually get into professional help and actually seek people who deal with parks and play parks as part of their business, and that we go out to tender and take their views and their suggestions and their recommendations and actually ask them to do that. So I'm going to leave it there. You have the report. That's why we're doing this. We're looking to seek professional guidance on how to best improve the scores across our play park review. That's for both accessibility to parks, the play value in our parks, and also the inclusivity of our parks. Thank you very much. Oh, and when we do come to the voting, we could take all the recommendations on block.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Donnell. We have still got some quite heavy stuff to discuss before we end this meeting, so I'd just like you, please, to keep your comments tight because we don't want to finish at midnight. Play parks accessibility tender, Councillor O'Donnell's already explained this. Do I have any comments? Okay, well, I'll read out the proposal. Members to consider the recommendations from the Operations and Assets Committee. The recommendations made by the Operations and Asset Committee at the meeting held on 5th of June 2025 were as follows. Members to consider recommendation from Ops and Asset Committee to seek a tendering process of up to £1.2 million as per the Play Parks Accessibility Report to improve the parks in line with recommendations of the report, which was on inclusivity, accessibility and play value. Secondly, members to agree to initiating a public consultation with published play parks accessibility review to allow residents to decide on the status of each park as per the recommendation by the Operations and Assets Committee. Thirdly, members to consider the recommendation from the Operations and Assets Committee to pursue a Section 106 opportunity from the Coal Orchard Development 3818-015 for £63,968.51 to help with funding towards this project. 4, members to consider the recommendation from the Operations and Assets Committee to pursue a funding bid for the National Lottery Reaching Communities Fund to contribute funding towards this project. And then finally, members to consider the recommendation from the Occupations and Assets Committee to full council to allow funding from EMR budget 342 play equipment and EMR 343 paths to be used towards this project. Do I have a proposal, please? Councillor O'Donnell. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ellis. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that unanimously confirmed. Thank you very much indeed. Now, it is recommended that members vote to exclude the press and the public under Standing Order 1.18.7 from the following two items due to Green Fair Event Management Safety Plan Appendix, having sensitive review security information and road allotments wall repair. Operations and Assets recommendation having commercially sensitive information in regards to the quotes provided. Therefore, it's recommended that the access to information is brought forward and now includes item 26, Green Fair Event Management Safety Plan, and item 27, road and allotments wall repair, operations and assets recommendation. Do I have a proposal, please?
Can I just ask a question? Is all of it confidential, or can we go into do the report and do as much in public session without going into full-blown private session? I hate going into confidential session if the majority of the report is public, but I'll take it.
I defer to the town clerk to answer that.
It's just the event management plan that we can't discuss in public. The actual report is fine.
So would you like me to proceed until we reach the point where we can't discuss any security implications? Okay, in which case, everybody may stay until we reach the point, and I'll ask you to let me know when we reach that point where we've got to suspend standing orders. So item 25, access to information, we moved on from here. So it's the Green Fair Event Management Safety Plan that we're discussing. So I have down that Craig Stone, Community and Place Manager, was going to introduce the item. In Craig's absence, who is actually going to present this? Marcus, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the only reason this is on the council agenda this evening is because obviously under the terms of reference of the committees would be for the community in place committee to sign off the event management plans under the terms of reference. Given there's been a slight change in the responsibility for the event, now sitting with Taunton Town Council since the Community in Place Committee took place recently, it was felt better that the full council consider this evening rather than call a special Community in Place Committee to remediate that. But our Climate in Place officer has done a lot of work, as I say, putting together the event management safety plan for the event taking place this weekend to celebrate the big Green Week. There's a whole host of activities there to support the Plastic Free Communities project, support Taunton achieving plastic free status. So the event is still running in collaboration with my carbon coach, who's previously run the event with great success under the former Borough Council, and the report outlines a number of officers that have been involved in the work preparing for this event this coming weekend and the benefits that it will bring. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions? Councillor Ellis.
It's not a question. I just want to thank Jordan and Tim for all the hard work they've done and pulling this event together. I think it's great this can become an annual celebration. I think it's going to be a hugely fun day on Saturday. So you need to get yourself to Goodland Gardens 10 AM to 3 PM. And there's going to be amazing, there'll be stalls, there'll be amazing food, and there's going to be sovereign nature, there's amazing puppet, loads of activities for children and families, really fun storytelling and all activities. And there'll be fantastic live music, including from the Fitzwarren Quartet, and there's going to be a DJ. It's going to be a fabulous day. I've read the event management report, which I'm not going to go into the details of. It seemed very thorough and very practical and covering all the bases to me, so I'm very happy with it.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to place on record the amount of hard work that Tim's put on behind the scenes, and we're very grateful to him, not just on this, but other projects too. Could I ask anybody else who wants to make any observations before we move to a vote? Thank you. Members to consider, excuse me, the event management plan for the Green Fair at Goodlands Gardens, the 14th of June. Do I have a proposer, please? Councillor Ellis, do I have a seconder? Councillor, oh, I'm so sorry. Councillor Fernandez, do you want to say something? Oh, you can second. I do apologise. I haven't got eyes in my head. I should have looked round. Councillor Fernandez has seconded it. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? Delighted to say that has been unanimously confirmed. We're doing well. Item 27, Road Barton allotments, wall repair, operations and assets recommendation. You'll be delighted to know this is the last item on this very full agenda. I'd like to call on Marcus Prowse to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, this is on the agenda tonight because it proposes to use an earmarked reserve. It was considered by the Operations Assets Committee last week. There's been issues since December with a wall at Road Barton allotments. Our maintenance lead officer has obtained 3 quotes, and the recommendation is to go with quotation 3, which is in the report. I'm happy to take any questions. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Can I please be brief if we need to clear the room? In the absence of that, do I have any questions? Marcus, all happy? Definitely then. Thank you.
You've done sort of opposite.
Yes. So anyway, it does seem that this is non-controversial. Do I have a proposal, please? Councillor O'Donnell. Seconder, please. Councillor Tully. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that motion unanimously confirmed. And I believe that is the end of the meeting, unless I've left anything out. And thank you for this supporting this marathon meeting. I have tried to get it through as quickly as reasonably possible. And I hope everybody has felt the same. Thank you so much. And I look forward to meeting you at our next meeting.
You know what? Well done, Martin. It was planned, working on it.